Well, we are live. Yes, we are. Hi,
Sounds
everybody. Nice Sunday morning here. Joe Rayo and Joe Chaffee on the Sunday morning Coffee with Joe's show. Uh, got all sorts of different names for it. Coffee with Joe and Joe, Coffee with Joe's, Coffee with Chaffee and Rayo. Bottom line is it's Sunday morning. It's 11 o'clock. So, the rodent has spoken.
uh, first of all, let me just say, it's never a case of the rodent or the groundhog or the woodchuck or whatever coming out and people photographing him actually see. What it is that they take this poor animal out of a box and then they put him up to a guy with a top hat who apparently speaks groundhogese,
Right,
and
I
he
know.
is the one who's giving.
I watched it. All I could think of was the groundhog had this look on his face of why did you take me out of my deep sleep? Why? You could have just left me alone. You don't need me to tell you that there is no winter going on right now, nor will there be.
You never know.
Right.
I saw something on Friday, Joe. I posted it on my Facebook page, which I have not seen in the 3 years that the Climate Prediction Center has been putting out these experimental 3 to 4 week progs. Usually, when they put out these 3 to 4 week probability progs, let's say a probability of above normal or below normal temperatures, it's 50, 55, 60% at most. This past Friday, for the second half of February, the 15th through the 29th, they put us in a 70% probability of above normal temperatures. I have never seen them go that high in terms of a statistical probability for the 3 to 4 week experimental prog. Never, ever. And we are in it. So they are apparently, they being the Climate Prediction Center forecasters, are saying flat out it's going to be warm for the second half of February here in our part of the country.
Yeah, it's pretty hopeless. If you're a snow lover, it's really hopeless. And you know what? I'm looking at the teleconnections today. When we get to those, um, it's a pretty sad state of things. I just want to go back to the rodent for a second. Uh, do you happen to know, by the way, because of course, we've got Puxatawny Phil, and we have Staten Island Chuck, and then there's Malvern Mel, and a few other ones. I'm just kind of curious. Did they all pound the table in the same direction, or did they wind up going in different places? And what about Puxatawny Phyllis? What's she up to?
I often said that if Puxatawny Phil sees Puxatawny Phyllis on February 2nd, in 6 weeks there'll be six more groundhogs. But
Yeah, right, exactly.
I don't know what the others. A lot of people asked me this morning. Said, did the Staten Island groundhog, Staten Island Chuck, did he bite the mayor, or did the mayor drop him?
Yeah,
I,
yeah. I didn't even see. I didn't even notice whether they, what the other ones did. I happened to have the TV on this morning at 7 o'clock when they were, when they were dealing with the Gobbler's Knob and all the rest of it. So, and of course, the groundhog. By the way, I would have been more interested if if he has a Super Bowl pick than anything else, which apparently he did not. So we'll just leave it at that. Couple of things come to mind. Hey, did you ever hear of the Bering Sea rule?
hold on for a second.
What?
Hold on. Just Googled this. According to the Daily News, 2 hours ago, Staten Island Chuck predicts early spring on Groundhog Day.
Yeah, another revelation. Go on.
And that's it. I thought there might be even a video or whatever, but no. So watch. Oh, wait a minute. Watch Staten Island Chuck make his prediction. So apparently there's a video going on or going around showing this. I'm just looking here. Sea Summer, Staten Island Advance, traveling to the Staten Island Zoo in West Brighton on a cold February morning to see Staten Island Chuck's Groundhog Day prediction may be difficult for some, but that doesn't mean the excitement of the furry prognosticator's appearance has to be missed.
Oh yes, that excitement. Yes, let's not miss that. Yanking a groundhog out of his deep sleep just to for some folklore. I don't know. I
And
guess that.
apparently he didn't see his shadow either, so that means that it's 6 more weeks of winter is over and,
It's
and
over.
spring begins. Yes.
By the way, have you ever heard of the Bering Sea rule?
No. the Bering Sea
The
rule?
Bering Sea rule is apparently some kind of what I mean. I've seen it occasionally brought up. But I didn't really bother to look into it. But apparently, the Bering Sea rule, and it's something to do with teleconnections and everything else. Something about if whatever's going on in this geographic area that includes the Aleutians out to the Bering Sea. I don't know what the exact geography is, but whatever's there now is impacting the eastern half of the United States from the Mississippi River eastward in about 18 or 19 days. Okay. So you basically take that weather map and just kind of lift it, where the lows and highs are, and you just sort of superimpose it on a certain geography out in the east. And that's what's supposed to be, the weather. So I guess a few people are kind of they're all sort of looking at some monstrous storm out in the Pacific that's there now, and that maybe it's going to be impacting the East Coast sometime around February 19th and 20th. I don't know. I got to look into it a little bit more. I just thought maybe you might have known something
Never
about
heard
it.
of it.
All right, well, something. Well, it gives me something to do this afternoon. So let's talk about a couple of things. First off, I don't know about you, Joe. I've got a lot of sunshine here, and I went for a 3.5 mile walk this morning because I ran out of espresso coffee. And there's a very, very warm feel to the air. I know that the air aloft is a lot colder, and you've got this warm front that's coming this evening. So it looks like, at least on the radar, that there's this stick of snow shower activity moving across Pennsylvania. I was wondering what you thought about that when it comes through late this afternoon and tonight.
Already since Friday night, Joe, at least up here in Putnam Valley, Friday night between 9:30 and 10 o'clock, we had a brief round. I keep thinking the camera's up there, and I moved it down here, so I'll talk to all of you
Yeah,
now.
and it's perfect. It's a perfect position, by the way.
Uh, Friday evening between 9:30 and 10 o'clock, we had a brief burst of snow, which actually whitened my deck and whitened parts of my blacktop driveway. It went very quickly later on in the night and early in the morning on Saturday, and we actually then changed over to just plain rain and shower activity. Then this morning, I think it was about 4 o'clock a.m., my wife wakes me up to tell me that it is snowing outside, and we had a whitening of the deck again. But when I woke up later on in the morning, all that was gone. So these periods of snow that we've had, these hit or miss renegade snow showers, have been enough to actually coat colder surfaces for a little bit with some white, but then it very quickly goes away. Now, this area that's approaching now may very well bring us another one of these light coatings if it holds
Well,
together later on.
let me bring up the radar. Hang on
Yeah.
one second. Let me bring that up, and we'll take a look at it. Uh, just a moment. All right, and let's take a look at this. If we had at least some reasonably cold air around, this actually wouldn't be a half bad looking warm front. There's a fairly solid area of snow now into western PA, and you see it rolling right along, moving to the east. I don't know, Joe. I just think that ground temperatures. I mean, you know, it just doesn't seem cold enough,
No, Joe.
especially late this afternoon and this evening. I mean, I just don't want to. I don't know. I'm not enthused by this. I've had a few people ask me about it. It's in the low 40s already. We probably have time to edge temperatures up a little bit higher. I just don't know that you're going to get very much out of this that's going to be of any consequence.
Now, Joe, it's what we had on here on Friday night and what we had this morning, a cheap thrill for the snow lovers. I mean, this is what you'd be groping with. Although maybe later this week it might get a little bit more exciting.
Right.
But I really don't see too much. And if you use the Alan Casper Pittsburgh rule, the area of green here on the radar looks like it's about 4 or 5 hours away. So let's talk about maybe around 4 o'clock this afternoon. Some of us looking out the window might actually see a little bit of flakiness falling, but I don't really think it's going to amount to all that much.
Right. By the way, I did speak to him earlier today. He said he may be watching the live stream. Okay.
Oh,
Maybe
hey,
watching.
hi,
So
Alan.
I don't know if he is or if he's tuning in 20 minutes late, but or 10 minutes late. But if he's on, hello there, and you can always participate in the chat if you'd like.
Oh God,
Hint.
I don't think Alan Casper realizes that how many people of a certain age would go crazy to get a chance to see him and listen to him. He was such a major influence, I guess, on both of our lives, Joe. I
Yep.
mean, when we were growing up in the Bronx and watching the weather forecast, I mean, the first thing out of our mouths in a situation that portended a possible snow event would be, what did God say?
Exactly.
We would always bow down to Alan Casper. Uh,
Exactly. Well, I've been trying to, kind of get him, if he would Skype, we could get him in here on a live stream, but yeah, I can't, I can't do it for him, so he's got to, set it up. So, anyway, he has a standing invitation to come on this show anytime he would like. Meanwhile, Mr. Rayo, going on to where we're going for this week, of course, okay, so we get this warm front through, and we are, I pulled up the satellite loop here. You start to see all the action right now is out in the west. So we already know automatically that except in rare instances, if they're getting pounded in the west, uh, that means probably the exact opposite is going on in the east. And in fact, on the watches and warnings this morning, as of 11, we're coming up on a quarter after 11. I'm just going to freshen this up in case there was any updates. You've got most of the state of Utah, virtually the entire state of Wyoming under a winter storm warning. Southeastern Idaho also under a winter storm warning. Advisories surrounding it, high wind warnings, and watches and wind advisories across much of the Southwest and down through Southern California. That's where all the action is right now.
but eventually, all of that stuff will have to go east, and eventually, we will have to get. I mean, right now, not much happening here. As you just mentioned, it's all out west, but eventually, all that stuff is eventually going to move our way, if I could say eventually, a few more times here.
Right.
And it looks like that'll be targeting us, say from Wednesday on through Thursday and into part of Friday as well.
I'm bringing up the snow forecast map, by the way, from the weather services from the digital forecast, and it looks like Wyoming looks like it takes the brunt of this here with the 1 foot plus snows over a fairly large area, and also up and down through the state of Utah, particularly in one of the mountains. It's the Wasatch.
I think so.
Yeah, so you got some 1 foot plus snows, 9 for Salt Lake City, but you've got some bigger amounts. I think what is that, Route 15, up and down Route 15? It looks like where the bulk of the snow falls, and then a good chunk of the state of Nevada, Northern California, and up through the Pacific Northwest, getting their fair share of snow. And then, of course, you could go look at the Midwest and Northeast, and this is through Wednesday morning, 10 a.m where you were seeing upwards of a coating to a couple of inches in some places. What you're seeing in New York State and northern Pennsylvania, that is predominantly what's happening today with this warm front going by, and what you're seeing back through Ohio and Indiana and Illinois and down in through Missouri. That's for the system that's coming up for later this week. So why don't we let's set up, Joe, what's going to happen Monday and Tuesday, 50s. I'm having a little bit of this is a funny time of year. If you get the right setup with enough sunshine and the right wind direction, you certainly could put your temperatures and get them up well into the 50s and maybe even push the 60-degree mark. It's not impossible. Okay. My first impression on this for tomorrow was that we would probably wind up seeing 60s up into maybe into southeastern Pennsylvania, southern New Jersey, and points south and west of there, and mid 50s up to about mid to upper 50s up to about New York City. How do you stand with that?
I think that White Plains tomorrow has a shot of getting to at least 50 degrees. I think we're going to see some early cloud cover, and then it's going to be a matter of how much sunshine can break through and how early does it break through? I think if for whatever reason the cloud cover breaks, let's say by mid or late morning, and we have more sun, White Plains could very easily make it above 50 degrees tomorrow. Remember that White Plains, the Westchester Airport is not really um, in White Plains. It's really more like Harrison, and they tend to get
You get that breeze.
a cooler breeze from off of Long Island Sound. Similarly, I think for a place like Poughkeepsie, again, clouds early, depending upon how soon they break, we could see temperatures of around 50. I'm going to play it at within a degree or two of 50 tomorrow for most places in the Hudson Valley. And normally the high temperature at this time of the year is around 38, 39. So we'll be at a good 10 or 11 or 12 degrees above normal, I think, tomorrow. And tomorrow is likely to be, I think, the pick of the week in terms of great weather, because after that, I could see on Tuesday probably a lot of clouds, precipitation moving in. It'll be another mild day. Temperatures may be close to 50 again on Tuesday,
Let
but
me
it
let
gets
me bring
rather
the
wet.
Tuesday let me bring the Tuesday map temperature map up. I'm kind of moving it around so everybody could take a look at where the colder areas too, which is quote unquote colder north of I-90, where it's in the upper 30s to around 40. And then for Tuesday, you have to get down into from Washington D.C., Baltimore south, and that's where you see low and middle 60s. But you are right. After that, it does kind of drop. We are going to see the weather deteriorate. So Monday definitely the best day of the week. I certainly would agree with you on that standpoint.
Yes, and no need to say, a lot of times in the past, on the day after Super Bowl Sunday, we've had some sort of significant winter storm to deal with, and it doesn't look like that's going to happen, at least in the immediate day or two after today. Tomorrow, Tuesday, temps near 50, a dry day developing into hopefully a sunny day tomorrow in the afternoon, and then on Tuesday, more in the way of cloud cover, and probably whatever precip we see on Tuesday is going to be of the wet, not white variety.
All right, so let's. I'm going to bring up the teleconnections, and we'll take a look at this because they, you know what, Joe, they're god awful. Okay, I mean, really, there's no other way to describe this. I mean, from the standpoint for snow lovers. So first we have the Pacific North America Index, or the PNA, which basically is trough in the east, ridge in the west, or just the opposite, or somewhere in between. When it's negative, it is ridge in the east, and you will know most of the time it sits in ranges between minus 200 and plus 200. But sometimes you wind up going several standard deviations above the mean. And this is what we're seeing here. The PNA actually is strongly negative as we speak, going into the first couple of days of next week. So that kind of explains the warmth of the next couple of days. Then we've got a rush up to the neutral line around February 6th. So that sort of explains what's going to be happening toward the end of the week, only to have it crash to off the wall negative going into between February 6th and February 10th, and staying off the wall negative through February 16th. So that right there says that's not good for snow lovers in the eastern part of the United States in general. Meanwhile, what really struck me, Joe, is the NAO, because the NAO right now is actually neutral. It goes a little bit negative through the 5th, okay, which is Wednesday, and then it just shoots up to super positive. This is, I think, one of the strongest readings that I've seen in the NAO in the last couple of years. So this is, when it comes to blocking, you want to see a negative reading on this. It's super, super positive, which means you've got low pressure all across the North Atlantic. So you're getting no help whatsoever from that. The only thing that snow lovers have to grasp on, since we're seeing these pressure patterns being stretched to extremes, the East Pacific Oscillation, or the EPO, does go from somewhat positive, which is usually warmish in the east, to neutral and then strongly negative starting from the 8th. So that probably kind of tempers it from being an absolute blowtorch. But if you're a snow lover trying to see a setup when you've got teleconnections like this, where only one of the three majors that we're looking at gives you any kind of hope for something from the standpoint of snow. You're not gonna. This is not good for the next couple of weeks. Not good at all.
May I say that perhaps we're talking about a fire hose in the Atlantic this winter, as opposed.
Well, you know what? That's well. Taking a look. I'm just gonna run this. Oh yeah, I mean, I just put the jet stream up for the end of the week. Okay, and if you take a look here, you've got a fire hose, okay? Pretty much straight across the Atlantic again. I mean, there is the other thing that's happening too is that you've got low pressure all across Greenland and Iceland. You know, that's you're looking at the area with that North Atlantic oscillation when it goes negative. You're going to want to see, between 40 north and 55 north in this area that I've just boxed out. You want to see lower than normal pressures there. And when you see higher than normal pressures in that range, in that region, that is, like you said, Joe, a fire hose setup here in the Atlantic. Oh, look at this. I mean, I'm just moving in this until next weekend. Oh, my God. I mean, you could just draw a straight line from Nova Scotia to Newfoundland all the way across to Europe. There's this is horrible from that standpoint.
No blocking whatsoever. No block. Uh,
No.
what can I say?
Well, here's your negative EPO in play because you do have a ridge that's building up along 140 up into the Pacific Northwest. So there actually is some colder air that gets down out of Canada into the Great Lakes and into the Northeast. But the problem is that it's in and out. You're going to have cold air, shots of cold air coming in and shots of cold air coming out. So the only way for anything to happen from the standpoint of wintry precipitation, particularly for the I-95 corridor, is you've got to have everything's got to time out perfectly. You've got to have your cold air come in. You have to have your moisture come in when you've got cold air around. And unless it does that, you've got nothing to work with. And this is going up through February 9th on the long range show. I'm just not seeing anything here that is remotely hopeful when it comes. I mean, it does get a little bit better. I'm just kind of as far out, at least going out after day 7. It gets a little less fire hose-ish in the Atlantic. So, we'll see if that means anything as we get down the road. But I'm just, it just doesn't look good.
And now you see why the forecasters of the Climate Prediction Center did what they did and placed us in a 70% probability of above normal temperatures here in the Northeast, or at least in the tri-state New York area for the latter half of February, from the 15th through the 29th. This all seems to lead in that direction. And yeah, what can we say to those of you who are winter weather and snow enthusiasts, except to say maybe, just maybe, things will get a little bit better in March or even into early April for you.
All right, so let's run the GFS. And of course, the action in the West is obvious. You've got a 996 low there in northeast New Mexico and an area of snow that drops down through Idaho, Wyoming, and into parts of Colorado. That low drops, we were now into Tuesday afternoon, so that low makes the turn across West Texas, starts to shoot out northeast. And then Wednesday morning, it looks like, Joe, the front, this cold front here, I'm going to get my pen up here. So you've got a cold front that's moved on through by Wednesday morning, and then it just sort of stalls out down in the Gulf states. You've got another low that's going to be coming out from there. Actually, the model is, I got to go back and find out when it was the last time they had accumulating snow in Dallas-Fort Worth. It might be like several years, but it looks like they might actually get something here on Monday, Tuesday night into Wednesday. So now the second wave comes out, and there's colder air, somewhat colder air, but it's really minimal here that moves out for Wednesday night and Thursday. So this first wave comes up, and you have this high that goes out across the lakes and into New England Wednesday night and Thursday. If this is just right, maybe you get some snow, sleet, or freezing rain at the start. particularly from, I'll be a little generous. So let's say from central New Jersey northward, north of Route 78, going northward. Maybe you can take it down to Route 195 at the start for a brief time. The only thing I will point out, Joe, is that the NAM for the same time frame is actually significantly colder and slower with the high moving eastward into New England. So even though the NAM didn't go out far enough, I'm wondering whether the NAM might have a colder look for Wednesday night and Thursday. And then after that goes by, there's a second wave that's going to develop on it. And this one actually gets to be a fairly wrapped up storm. It's got a 980-ish low uh, in south central PA, looks like near Harrisburg. And this might mean for some solid snows up the west side of the Appalachians, western half of Pennsylvania, upstate New York, and 971 low on this run, Joe, in western Massachusetts. I wonder if this could wind up being a solid snowstorm for areas upstate north of I-90.
Well, we were looking at this the other day, and yeah, it seems that if anybody's going to get anything significant out of this in terms of snow or frozen precipitation, it might be from about Cape Cod and points north and east, down East Maine, which has been getting some pretty good snows so far this winter season, toward Nova Scotia. Need I say that Newfoundland has had their fair share of snow this year? So yeah, maybe it might be that places not necessarily here, but to the north and east, deeper into that colder air mass, might just see significant snowfall out of this. But for us, again, we're kind of like on the cusp, aren't we? And it seems the lower levels of the cold is where it's cold. The top layer of the atmosphere, once again, warming quickly,
Right.
especially when you look at the European. The European really wants to warm things up aloft as we move through the second half of this week ahead of that sharp cold front on Friday.
You can watch the upper trough here swinging out of the plains and across Texas, and then the whole trough just kind of bodily lifts up. Part of it goes, kind of splits off, but a fairly solid shortwave here that goes negative. And then as we move along, we mentioned about the fact that negative NAO, Joe. I'm sorry, that negative EPO would mean that we would get some shots of cold air, and you do see some colder air in here behind this storm going into next weekend. It's a fairly decent shot that comes in, and then it pulls out. The next weather system approaches for the February 9th and 10th. It's another front. Now you've got an even bigger high. Now, this is when your EPO. I'm only out to 222 hours on the GFS at this point, but you've got a 1040 plus high near Lake Winnipeg here, and some what will probably be some very cold low level air that's spreading out across southern Canada. And of course, this is where the GFS loves to make 1,000-mile long warm fronts, uh, which it has with a low in Colorado. And this is ridiculous. It's never going to look like this. But the EPO, the East Pacific Oscillation, being negative is going to at least, now we're not going to know the details of this. Is too obviously it's way too far down. But this is what would happen sometimes with a strongly negative EPO: is you wind up getting cold air spreading across southern Canada from west to east. So under certain circumstances, again, if you time things out in a where you've got cold air when you've got a weather system moving along in the southern part of the jet stream, that's how you could wind up with some kind of winter weather event out of this. But I really, Joe, it does look so hopeless. Certainly for the I-95 corridor, anyway. Well, north and west, it might be another matter. And I guess the only thing you have to look at is the question for Wednesday night into Thursday is if it's going to be cold enough when that first wave moves our way.
Yep. You said it all, Joe. What else can I possibly add to what you just said?
To
Um,
my genius.
yeah,
Hey, I got. Look, here's a question for you. Can you pull up? Because I know you like that. You really like to look at the omega, and I want to ask you a question about this. So if you look at bring up the NAM, if you would, bring up that NAM FGen uh,
yeah.
for. I guess you want to look at the 700 versus the 850.
I usually look at 700, yeah, instead of the because that's where that's where I started looking at this on the NCEP maps,
Right.
and that's where they put the area of atmospheric energy, or omega, was on the 700 level. Now let me just move this quickly to regions, and here, and you want the 12 kilometer NAM?
Yeah, use the wider eastern, yeah, the 12-kilometer NAM. So I'm looking at this and I'm seeing that we're early in the game here. What do you make of, when you look at this? So this is at the point the frontal boundary on the NAM has moved all the way down into North Carolina.
First of
And
all, first of all, for tonight, that stick of snow that we were talking
oh
about
yeah,
for the
let's
day.
roll, let me roll that back. Hang on a second. Okay, so there's the omega for the stick of snow.
Yeah, you could see how predominant it is, but as it moves along, it kind of flattens out, or spreads out. I wouldn't say dissipates, but it looks like that stick is right over the tri-state area, right about halftime, around around 8 o'clock tonight, and then it kind of moves away to the north and east. So yeah, we might see something out of that this evening. Uh, people who are at Super Bowl parties, the wives looking out the window. George, look what it's doing. It's snowing. Was it supposed to do that? Maybe we should go home. Uh,
Well, I'm looking here, Joe, at noon. It's 11:30, so at noon, it looks like the omega is at its was actually at its strongest when it moved into Western PA this morning. And you're right, it just kind of flattens out. Can we glean anything going forward? Just kind of looking at um, Wednesday evening in terms of what we're seeing, the beginnings of some sub omega down, well out into Georgia and South Carolina, or is it? I mean, if there's supposed to be precip here by Thursday morning, is there anything we can figure out from this as to what it might, what might happen?
I want to go to the eastern U.S. loop here. Yeah, you can see that there's like strands of energy draped across um, Georgia and South Carolina, going back into Alabama, and I'm not sure yet. That's what, 84 hours.
Yeah, that's Wednesday evening.
Whether or not that's going to organize well, it might organize into something eventually for us. Um, but then, if that be the case, then how cold is it going to be here by Thursday?
All right, so look, shift to the 850. Look at the 850, which is just under 5,000 feet. And look at, here's the thing that struck me about the 850, the thermal, that ribbon there, okay,
Hmm.
that runs from the Ohio Valley, from Kentucky, northern Arkansas, Kentucky, through West Virginia to about New York City, or just north of New York City. That's a pretty solid spread of temperatures. You've got -9 touching northern New Jersey at 850. You've got +9 in the southern part of near Wallops Island, the southern part of the Delmarva Peninsula. I'm just wondering whether you could wind up with a solid round of overrunning precip developing Wednesday night into Thursday morning as that area starts to push northward. We don't have the NAM beyond 84 hours, so really we don't know what the NAM would have done. But that's a pretty impressive ribbon there, very tight gradient of temperatures.
Indeed, and cold air can be very, very stubborn. I don't, I guess, if we really had a lot of snow over upstate New York and central and northern New England, we might be concerned for a longer interval due to cold air damming of cold air. But I'm not sure how long that's going to last. But yeah, the initial shot late Wednesday night into the early part of Thursday could very well spell out some frozen precipitation problems for parts of the tri-state area.
All right, so let's finish up the map summary here. I'm gonna bring up WPC's forecasts for the next several days. So as far as the probability of at least 2 inches of snow, and of course what you're seeing in the Northeast, this is through Wednesday morning. So much of what you're showing up is from this warm front that's going through tonight. So obviously it's all upstate New York and well up into northwestern New England. Meanwhile, out in the west, you're seeing a very large, not almost 100% probability of at least 2 inches for much of Utah, eastern Idaho, all of Wyoming, a good chunk of Colorado. If we jump that to 4 inches, you'll see that there's also a fairly large area of 4 inch plus for Wyoming and into Utah. I'm going to skip over to a foot, the probability of at least a foot, and the best chances for that are in the state of Wyoming. So it's a pretty decent weather system. And of course, if you look in the east, there's not much happening there. If we go to WPC's longer range, okay, so this at least gives us a clue as to what they are thinking. So Wednesday into Thursday, you have the arrival of the cold air. So I don't know, why they have uh, a probability. Well, again, this goes into Thursday morning. So the lighter green is 10%, which is just north of New York City. 70, look, basically north and west of Route 78. Draw a line from New York, just north of New York City, to Harrisburg. From there, north and west, that's where you've got a 10%. And then you go to Friday, and on Friday, this is for Thursday into Friday. Let me just get the state boundaries up, because there you go. So on Friday, the line actually moves a little bit further to the south, Joe. They've got, this is for Thursday into Friday. So 12Z Thursday, 12Z Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 a.m. So the 10% probability of at least two, running from just south of Harrisburg to just north of Trenton to about New York City, north shore of Nassau County, north and west. And then you've got a 40% probability north of Route 84, which I think makes sense. And then if we go to the last day, which is for Friday night and Friday night into Saturday morning, your probabilities are still shifted well to the north. So that's with more of the second wave that comes out. So that's what WPC is seeing out of this. And their 7-day, Joe, their 7-day total precip is actually fairly significant here for this week, showing 1.5 to 2.5 inch rainfall amounts over New Jersey and southern New England, and up to the north, every bit of 1.25 to 1.75 inches, and even some 3 and 4 inch amounts being showing up from Virginia down through the Carolinas into North Georgia and into eastern Tennessee and Kentucky. So after we get through Monday and Tuesday, like you said, it's going to be a mess to deal with rain-wise for the coast. More rain-wise on the coast probably, although there might be some early winter precip if we get it in here Wednesday night into Thursday.
Overrunning does a lot, Joe. Overrunning can squeeze out a lot of moisture, and that's apparently what they're thinking over at the WPC Weather Prediction Center. And it's a combination of two fronts. It's the warm front approaching from the south for later Wednesday into Thursday, and then we have that very sharp cold front that's working its way in from the west. And I even said off air to you before we got started here, I'm curious as to whether or not I think the Storm Prediction Center already has parts of the southeast outlined for severe weather.
Oh, let's take a
State.
look. Hold on. I
I
got
think
I got to remember to bring them up because sometimes I go through the day. I'm so focused on winter weather that I'm forgetting to. No, I accidentally brought up Les Plumes. Hang on one second, Joe. Um, Here we go. SPC. Let's see what they got here on their day. Oh yeah, look at this, Joe. So they got. Let's bring it up. I'll bring up the maps here. So yeah, because we're getting into February, I guess it's really a good idea we just start paying more attention to this. But here we go. So this is Tuesday. We've got Tuesday a slight risk of severe across northern Louisiana, southeastern Arkansas, and western Mississippi. That is for Tuesday. And this is their day 3 outlook. Let me just look at what they have. Hang on. So they got this is that's for Monday. So Monday they don't have much. Their day their day 3 outlook is Tuesday into Wednesday. They got slight risk of severe in that area that I mentioned. And then when we go to day 4, I'm just going to set the map up here. Yeah, I mean, on day 4, they have a 15% risk, so that's a slight risk of severe weather. Louisiana, that's, wait a minute, but their day 3, that doesn't make any sense. Hold on. This is Tuesday. It looks like they haven't updated 09Z. Yeah, they haven't updated Their day 4 to 8 hasn't updated for some reason. I have the old one in here. So they're kind of a day behind, but you're right though. At least for the old day 5 had 15% slight risk in the Carolinas down into northern Florida. So yeah, we've got you definitely got severe weather risks uh, that we're going to have to deal with for the middle and latter part of the week.
Yeah, so I mean, if that's where the severe weather is going to be over the southeast, who's to say that there'll be a corridor or a nose, if you will, of general thunderstorm activity that could spread all the way up into our neck of the woods for Friday, for the early part of the day, as that cold front to the west, moves in and moves through. We could get some rumbles of thunder or flashes of lightning here to finish out the week.
Yes, I wouldn't I totally would not disagree with you, especially when that deepening low, if it winds up going up the way the models are showing. By the way, let me just mention we're now that we I've got the chat board up so I can see what you guys are saying. Let me just once again remind you, if you are on Long Island on Tuesday, I will be at the Sachem Library in Sachem, well, I'm sorry, in Holbrook, New York. Is which is actually not too far from where I live. It's right in my neighborhood. So I'll be at the Sachem Library at 2 o'clock Eastern Time. So I know it's in the middle of the day. Usually my library appearances are in the evening, but we just they decided that they wanted to try to do it in the middle of the afternoon. Maybe get some school kids in there, etc. And I think it's there might be one group of kids that might be coming out from one of the local schools, which I really encourage anyone to do. Just take advantage of it and come out. It's free. That's Tuesday, 2 o'clock at the Sachem Library in Holbrook, New York. Exit 61 on the LIE. You go to the second light. You make a left turn. If you're coming from the west, and it's literally a couple of blocks up on the left-hand side. It's very easy to get to.
This is your first library talk in a while, isn't it?
Yeah, I didn't have many last year. I only had a couple last year, and I just have this one scheduled. It kind of runs in cycles. Sometimes, I had a whole bunch of them the year before, and then they give it a break, and then they bring you back after a year or two, and suddenly have a whole bunch of them again. But right now, this is the only one that I have on the table. Uh-oh. Did I just lose the signal?
You lost it temporarily, but I think you're back now.
Okay, yeah, no, it just came back. I just saw a little, you know, kind of took a little bit of a hit here.
I have
Um,
a question for Scott Briller. If he's is he on today, or
he
I might
might
even
have. I don't know. He was. I thought I saw him on earlier.
since we're oh yeah, there he is. Scott Briller,
Yeah, he
since
is on. He's on.
who thought in early February in New York City Metro would be fighting for every flake, which was my question. He would probably know. I haven't done any research, but February now. I think that fairly recently, was about maybe 5 or 10 years ago, within the last decade, we actually had a February where we had zero snowfall, and
Yes, he did send that stat to me. Let me see if I can find it.
I think
Uh,
that's the only time that we've ever had zero snow in February. We've had a number of trace years for February for snow, but I seem to remember that there was one particular February where we had nothing. Uh,
I believe that was our Jeopardy question for today.
really?
I think it might have been. Yeah. I did. He did
In
send
fact, I
it.
think it might have been. You know what? In thinking about it, giving a hard thought, I think that might have been the year. We often speak of that one winter where we had like 5 inches of snow after the vernal equinox, and
Yes.
if we not had that 5 inches, we would have had like hardly anything for the snowfall that year. So I don't remember exactly what year that was. Either
I'm gonna say 98.
it would have to be the El Nino year then. It would have to be 97, 98.
98. I think it was 97, 98.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think that was the year we had nothing in February for snow at Central Park. The only,
okay, so here's
the
here's here's another Scott Briller Jeopardy question. So again, this is for New York City. Since this is a leap year, okay, the number of times, how many February leap years has Central Park had 6-inch snowstorms dating back to 1869? Good
geez,
luck.
yeah.
So 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 just so all right. So 150. This will be 151 Februaries. right?
Right.
150 Februaries. Divide that by 4 for the leap year, right? So you get what? 35?
37.5.
Okay, so in 30, so let's round it off. Let's say 37. All right. So
Okay.
in 37 winters where the February is in a leap year, how many of those did we get? Um, excuse me, and how many of those did we get 6-inch snowstorms?
I recently did something. I put it on Facebook about 6 inch or more snowfalls over the last 30 years. I don't recall seeing anything regarding February 29th. I'm going to say I'm going to say it's never happened. I'm going to say maybe there might have been a year where they had like 4 or even 5 inches on a February 29th, but I don't think that we've ever had.
No, but I think the question is the whole month of February in that leap year.
Uh, oh, you mean in years where we had a leap year?
Yeah.
How many times have we gone above 6 inches?
How many a 6-inch snowstorm in that month of February in that leap year?
Oh,
And according to Scott, it's only happened 3 times.
really?
Yeah. I mean,
Okay,
the way he's wording the question, that's how I'm reading the question.
three out of.
Unless the question is how many February 29ths would be 3 out of 37. Maybe that's what he means.
Mhm.
Okay, we'll have to get a clarification on that.
Clarification from Compton's Pictured Encyclopedia, which is the source of preparations for the question and answers used on Thriller Jeopardy.
Yes.
And now here once again is
And
our
of course, all our prizes are from the Spiegel Catalog Company, Spiegel, Chicago, Illinois, 60609. Oh, the nonsense you and I remember.
oh, we absorbed all of this
Oh,
stuff.
let me just bring up actually, this isn't nonsense. I want to bring up a serious,
Michael C. Fina.
the Michael C. Fina. All right, but let's not go to the obvious one. You
Oh, I
know,
know what
you
you
know
mean.
which one I'm talking about. All right. We're
It's in
not gonna.
Beverly Hills.
Yes,
In
it's in
Beverly Hills.
Beverly Hills. We're gonna
Yeah.
leave it at that. Um, and also the part that I probably wasn't until well into my 40s when I figured out what the joke was about. But no matter. This in a serious thing. So apparently, and by the way, we have the best audience. Scott Briller, by the way, just correct. It's 6-inch snowstorms for February, just on February 29th. So
Oh,
you answered 0. The actual answer is 3. Okay,
three, really?
so
So we had
it's
three,
3. So
three,
I just want
by sextiles, as I might point
right.
out.
So let me just bring this up because I think this is something that this is bothering me. Okay, this is bothering me in a big way. So we have, I believe, one of the best audiences you could possibly have, and I really take pride in the fact that the audience that's on our YouTube live streams every day. Aside from the fact that they're very loyal, they're also very well behaved. Okay, which is really great. And I bring that up because I am seeing and hearing. Um, Look, weather is what weather is, and it's if you're a snow lover, I can understand it being very frustrating. But there are some people that apparently are going after on social media uh, folks that have put out long range forecasts back before the winter has started, and apparently the forecast didn't quite work out to make these people happy. And the kinds of conversations are to me so over the top that are occurring. I mean, I haven't actually read it. I've been told about this. But I mean, people are getting threats from other people over the fact that it hasn't snowed. I mean, have you heard of anything more ridiculous that you would threaten someone because it hasn't snowed? I mean, that's horrible. That's
Well, you go,
horrible.
well, you go the other way, where let's say the groundhog a few years ago predicted, that we'd have an early spring, and it turned out all of a sudden we went into a cold, wintry, snowy weather pattern. Everybody was saying, "Shoot the groundhog," or something to that effect. You
Yeah.
know, people get very, very well. These are people who,
I mean, I understand it's one thing to be passionate, okay, about how you feel, and it's one thing to be frustrated about the fact that there isn't any snow. But to actually go out and you know verbally make, I know of one weather person that apparently had to go to the police over this. I mean, come on. This
yeah,
is stupid. I don't do long range. You and I don't really get into the super long range. I kind of tried my hand in it a couple of back years ago, and it's like, you know what, this isn't working for me. I can't get my head around it. I really don't care. I mean, I really don't care about what's going to happen 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 9 months from now. I'm much more concerned with what happens inside the local, the local time frame. All right. People want to look at water temperatures, somewhere near Fiji, so, having impact on wind in the Himalayas and all this other downstream stuff to see if butterflies are flapping their wings in order to cause a snowstorm in the eastern part of the United States. If that's your thing, that's fine. It's not mine. But let's have a little bit of, let's get some sensibility here with the average person, you know, uh, weather is weather. If you don't understand the variability, if you don't understand it's like decipher, it's like putting together a jigsaw puzzle with your hands tied behind your back. Okay, it ain't easy. So if you don't understand the fluidity of the fluidness of weather, I personally think that you don't belong here. Okay, you don't belong in weather groups. If you're going to behave like an idiot, all right. I don't know. I just kind of felt these are people. These are colleagues. These are people that are working the same business we do. These are people that are fairly respectable for the most part. I would grab I would grasp Joe at being fairly respectable. That works for me. You understand what I'm getting at here?
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, there's no excuse. There's no excuse for anyone um, to react in such a way. Okay, and if that's how if anybody that does that here, they're thrown out all right off the bat. So I know we don't have any worries because our audience is so terrific.
our in his when he was on television, Dr. Frank Field used to take occasional shots at people who claimed that they could make long-range weather predictions. In fact, there was an almanac that came out many, many years ago, and he actually the almanac was suggesting a major cold and snowy winter. It didn't turn out that way, and he actually took great pleasure in showing the almanac occasionally and saying, "Well, I'm going to line my bird cage with this." Literally, he was that kind of thing. But also in his autobiography, he actually admitted to the fact that when he was just getting started, he was approached by the St. Joseph Almanac Calendar. I don't know how many of you remember this. It used to be given out at
Oh,
farmers.
I remember that. Sure, sure. They had a little weather forecast on the bottom of it.
Each box had like fair or sunny or cold or dry. And he said that he was approached and he poo-pooed that. He says, "Why are you asking me to do that?" They said, "Well, your name is not going to be on it, and we'll pay you. I don't know. Back then, it was like in the 1950s or whatever. We'll pay you like $500 if you want to do that." And Frank Field swallowed his pride and said, "I'll do it." And he said he was once on the you know going home by train, and he's sitting there with a legal pad. February 2nd, snow. Yeah, that sounds good. February 3rd, partly cloudy, and he submitted that, and he got money for. So you do what you got to do.
To eat.
But that's the way he did his long range forecast. But there are others who really, really are into this sort of thing, as you mentioned. People who believe it, people who are constantly saying we're trying to make corrections. I'm trying to make this. I'm trying to improve my methodology of forecasting. And you look at these people and you just smile and say, "All right, yeah, you go on your merry way," or whatever like that. So it comes down to whether or not you want to do it just for the heck of it, or you want to do it because you honestly believe that you can forecast a big storm 18 months from now on a day in like early January.
But you know what? It also, Joe. It also goes to this issue, and I think this is part. This is part of it. By the way, let me just really quick. Javon Perry, Steve Lapointe. Thank you both for hitting super chat today. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Also, let me just also mention. Was it Keith James asking about the Paramus library? By the way, anybody, if your local library, you'd like to get us to come get us out to your local library.
Us?
Well, it could be us, or
Hey,
maybe the ones that are up in the Hudson
I'm not
Valley
I'm
are
not
easy.
doing anything anymore during the week, Joe.
Oh, yeah, exactly. You want people to, you will have their people contact your people. But the bottom line is, anybody out there, if you're a local library, have them contact either one of us or both of us. If I can't make it, maybe it's in a place where Joe can make it. If Joe can't, you get the idea. Maybe there's a happy medium where we can both make it. But have them contact either or one of us. But just to go back to what we were saying, Joe. Um, this also goes to something that's been going on now for a while that really is driving me crazy when it comes to the long range forecast, especially with respect to what you see on social media, and that is this. Okay, for the last every year, okay, every single year that I can remember, and I've been doing this pretty actively since 2000, I started in late 2013. Okay, so every year I can probably go back and pull out, if I had to, a number of forecasts from long range all over the place for the winter, because that's what really people care about is the winter. I would would struggle to find even a couple of them that would have forecasted below average temperatures and above average snow. I'm sorry. I would struggle to find a handful of forecasts that forecasted above average temperatures and below average snowfall for the eastern part of the United States. Okay, how is that? How can that be? How is it that every year, almost every forecast that you see on the long range calls for above normal snowfall and below normal temperatures in the eastern part of the United States? And I think the answer to that is obvious. The answer to that is no one is going to read your forecast if you are forecasting a warm, snowless winter, because snowless winters, there aren't people that are passion for, there's no passion for rain. There's passion for snow. Snow sells, ice sells, okay? And that's my problem with all the long range stuff, is that I think there's an inherent dishonesty that is there to an extent. I'm not accusing anybody specifically, but there is a bias when you're going to put these forecasts out. They're all, they're all going to be below normal temperatures and above normal precip. I got a real problem with that. So I just don't think there's any value in those long range forecasts to begin with. That's my opinion.
I was
Okay.
just doing a, I was just doing a quick while you were talking, Joe. The month of January, third warmest January on record at Central Park,
Really?
7 degrees above normal
Wow.
overall,
Well,
and
there was a great there are a few long range forecasts, and it's not just Central Park, by the way. It's probably a good chunk of
oh
the
yeah,
Mid Atlantic states that are finishing up way up on the high end like that.
you could go to a website that's available called State of the Climate. Um, by the time we get to the midpoint of February, they will have had all of the computations done, all of the statistics done for January on a nationwide scale, and you could see, or we'll be able to see, how much deviation there has been from the norm. And indeed, in this part of the country, in the eastern half of the country, it will turn out to be another abnormally warm January, as was the case last year. But last year, I think nationwide, well, let's see, December of 2018 averaged something like 2.6 degrees above normal nationwide,
Right.
and January was also above normal. This January is going to be, I think, way above the norm on a
Well,
coast.
when you have no access to Arctic air and it's all locked down, that's another thing, by the way. And I meant to mention this a couple of days ago. There's been all this, a lot of the talk going into the winter was the record low extent of sea ice in the Arctic. Okay, well, guess what? The fact that the polar vortex has been locked up over the Arctic region has now actually brought the extent of ice to a 10-year, almost a 10-year high. It's the consequence of having a non-winter to the south because the polar vortex has been locked up in the Arctic region with all the that's where all the bitter cold air is suddenly the lack of sea ice, that problem has disappeared. That's a fairly interesting development.
It is, but then again, you look at that and you
Is that
say
short term? Is it long term? I
can't
don't
make
know,
a
but
yeah, you can't make that statement just again on short-term values, as was the case, let's say, with Arctic snow or polar snow
yeah,
over Siberia and
right. I
you know,
agree. And the thing is, well, the thing with the sea ice was that the argument was made that the lack of sea ice would be perhaps conducive to more blocking. Well, guess what? The opposite has occurred. Okay. Not only did the lack of the deficient sea ice disappear, but it has created a condition, with that locked up polar vortex again. Again, so I guess it's sort of like which is for the chicken or the egg theory here. So which
right.
which is first? But uh, we've had almost non-existent block, except for that brief period in late November, early December, when we had the NAO super negative, and we had the storm in the Northeast, the snowstorm for the interior Northeast anyway. Around December 1st. But except for that short period, the NAO has not only been virtually non existent, but it's going into hyper positive state now. By the way, just really quick, John Marinelli. Um, you mentioned Middle Country Library. I have done talks at the Middle Country Library. I'd be glad to do more when they get in touch with me. They do every once in a while, but you are a hop, skip, and a jump to the Sachem Library. So I hope to see you Tuesday. I also saw that you mentioned that you haven't been feeling well. So get better and make it down to Sachem. And also, let's see, it was one other thing. I know William Hoover was mentioning about the fact that, everybody, a few people were going crazy over some Washington, D.C. forecasters or something with regards to the long range. But look, the bottom line is, folks, this is why, I'm not going to spend time trying to figure out 6 months from now when I'm still looking at Thursday. Okay? Really what it boils down to. Right, Mr. Rayo?
Yes, and somebody was just asking about your oranges, Joe, the Caracara
Yes,
oranges.
I
Uh,
I got some really. The local Stop and Shop had these gigantic ones. They looked like bigger than softballs, and they were so juicy. I've got one sitting upstairs waiting for me as soon as we're done.
he said, Joe, I asked a friend of mine to get me them oranges. This is Jimmy 132. Oranges that are really good. My friend that drives through Poughkeepsie almost every day to bring parts to Harriman, I asked him to get me some.
Those are terrific oranges. They are across. I think if I remember correctly, they are across from an orange that's grown they're grown in the San Joaquin Valley, and I think it's a certain California orange, and they bred it with an orange that grows in Venezuela. And anyway, the bottom line is they're just terrific. They're both sweet and tart and really really juicy. Because I find the sun-kissed navel oranges are really dry. They're not like they used to be juicy oranges. They're just not. But the caracaras are just insane. I love them.
And you know what I found? Getting away from oranges and everything else, just completely off the beaten track, Joe. On YouTube, I found a commercial for color forms. Remember color forms?
Sure, yeah,
And
I
they used
remember.
to have, and in 1963, color forms came out with Popeye the Weatherman.
Yes, you did. I did see you put that on. I didn't know that they had that.
I actually had that color forms Popeye the Weatherman, and I actually remember that it's more fun to play the
Color
color.
forms way, yeah.
If anybody wants to see that on my Facebook page, it's in glorious black and white. But I remember that it also kind of made me wonder. I guess they really weren't into PR as much as they are today. But a personality here in New York who was very popular was Tex Antoine, and that time he used to do the weather with Uncle Wetby, where he would dress Uncle Wetby up every night in response to what the weather was going to be in
And
the Texas
I
sky.
do remember that.
And I wonder why Colorforms or another some toy company didn't come out with an Uncle Wetby type thing where I mean, literally, he did what Tex Antoine used to do on his weather every night is what the kids were doing with color forms and Popeye the Weatherman
Oh
way
yeah.
back in the early '60s. It's dress him up, for the proper for snow or for sunny weather or whatever that kind of thing.
Oh yeah. No, that was quite the throwback when I saw that. That was pretty cool. All right, so I guess that wraps it up for this Sunday. It's 12:05. What time's the Super Bowl today? 6 o'clock?
6:30.
6:30. That's the kickoff.
Well, it all depends upon how long Demi Lovato is going to take to sing the national anthem.
Oh, I when I watch these, I don't know about you. I have said this. If you're going to sing the national anthem, please sing it the way it was written. I just I just don't understand. I've heard some versions that some people have sung that are just awful. Okay, they take it and they twist notes and they bend them to their left and right. And I just have this notion that I think the national anthem is written a certain way. The author wrote it with certain notes in mind, okay, and that we shouldn't be interpret using it as a way of making the song about yourself as opposed to about the nation. I don't know. That's just maybe I stand alone on this, but
Well,
I don't care for when artists take the national anthem and change it to suit them. I just
and I
don't.
think the first artist who did that was in the World Series and sometime in the mid '60s, Jose Feliciano, who changed the tempo, so to speak, or changed the way the song is sung. And now, ever since then, we've had various types of different versions of it.
Yeah.
But
Well, look, I've heard some where there's like some minor changes here and there, and that's fine. I have heard versions of it that where the song the where it's completely unrecognizable. You would think they were singing a totally different song. I just I know
but
it's
actually, in Las Vegas, they actually have a pool. I mean, how long will it take for the national anthem at the Super Bowl to be sung? Will it be sung in less than 2 minutes? Will it take more than 2 minutes? Will it take 3 minutes? There are actually bets and odds that go on
I know isn't it something?
Vegas about this. Well,
Uh
put odds and wagers on anything. Anyway, if any of you out there are in my vicinity, my wife is one of the directors of the Putnam Valley, or actually, it's the official term is the official name is the German American Club of Peekskill. Clubhouses in Putnam Valley. This evening, starting at 4 o'clock, they're having their annual Super Bowl party. If you like lots of good food and you want to watch the Super Bowl on 5 or 6 giant screens, come on out. The clubhouse is at Kramer's Pond Road, Putnam Valley. $10. That'll get you admission in. And of course, naturally, since my wife was one of the directors, that's where you will find moi. And I'm only there because the food is so great. I haven't eaten much of anything since late yesterday. I'm just saving myself for this evening, and I'll just plop myself in front of one of the big screen TVs and watch the game and watch the commercials and whatever else there is to watch. Watch the interview between Sean Hannity and the president if that tickles your fancy as well. But that's where I'll be this afternoon and this evening, Joe.
all right, and I'm going to be nowhere special. So that's good. So let's just give everybody a heads up. Tomorrow night, we're going to try our live stream, data permitting on my side if the internet behaves itself. But we're going to probably do it closer to 9 o'clock Eastern time because of I have a birthday dinner to attend. It's not mine, someone else's. So just let you know, 9 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow night. I'll set it up early with the 9 o'clock shotgun clock on there. So this way, you'll see that it's not going to be at the usual time of 7 o'clock. All right. So just giving you a heads up on that. Uh, Website posts later today. I'm updating the app right now for those of you on the Meteorologist Joe Chaffee weather app. And that's it. So have a great Sunday, Mr. Rayo.
You too, Joe. We'll see you tomorrow evening after your little birthday soiree. Not
Yes,
yours, but
but
somebody
not
else.
mine, but somebody else's.
Right.
Okay. Have a great night, great day, everybody. Be safe, and we'll see you tomorrow. We'll see you tomorrow.